Let's start healing. Hey everyone, I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to this episode of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. I think that was indeed shown this week with the passing of Kobe and his daughter and 7 other people in the tragic helicopter accident. We've all been grieving around the world and around this country, and I think that indeed shows how connected we are. This unfortunate tragedy is giving me an opportunity to talk about something that has been on my mind that I've wanted to share for a while. But first, I want to just talk about how moved I've been by just the love worldwide that's been shown for Kobe and the awareness that his passing has brought to so many people. So many folks are talking about how important it is to be present and in the moment because tomorrow is not promised, or how important it is to let the people you love know how you feel about them and not take them for granted. It's been such a shock for us all that those important aspects have been brought home to us. And I was really taken with a comment that I saw Marcellus Wiley make on the sports show Speak for Yourself. I was listening to an episode, I think it was the first day. I record them, and so I've been watching them back to back. But I think it was the first day, and they were all reacting to the tragedy. And he was just really upset because it's all unfathomable to us. And he just kept saying, this life, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. Like there's no way we can make sense of this. And I remember feeling like that on Sunday. There's so many things that I think I can understand, but I just couldn't understand that. I just couldn't understand that. But Marcellus was talking about something deeper, I felt, about life, period. Like we can't make sense of so many things in this human life that we walk around in. And there's no point in trying. He didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. And he just kept saying, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. I think for me, I'm speaking for myself, that sort of helped me. It helped me to remember and realize from a spiritual standpoint, this is not going to add up. It's not going to make sense. Things are going to happen. I can think of, oh my gosh, just horrific tragedies that happen to children that make no sense. And they will never make sense. And that brings me to what I have been wanting to talk about a little bit with you all. And that is just the topic of death. Quite a few people I've seen on social media recently have lost someone, and they're grieving the loss, of a loved one. This month of January is a month that traditionally has been a moment of grief for me in terms of remembering the people in my family that I've lost this month in past years, not this year. But my father passed in January, my grandmother passed in January, and my brother, he didn't pass in January, he passed in February, but everything happened to him on January 31st. He went into cardiac arrest and he never regained consciousness. And then he was unconscious for another 11 days. So when January comes around, I start feeling a little sad and a little melancholy. But this month, not so much. I really was trying to make an effort to get through the month in a happy place. But then a family friend passed last week, and then there's Kobe that, really was a gut punch to us all. And I bring this up because in a recent podcast, my guest, Shaheen Barday, and I were talking about how people can be so uncomfortable talking about death or they're not comfortable being around people at the end of their lives. I know some people that aren't comfortable going to funerals. They just can't. It's not something that they can take or want to endure. Having lost so many people in my family, death is something that doesn't scare me. Certainly, I don't want to go tomorrow, but it's not something that scares me. It's just that I miss the people who leave. And through the grace of God, I've been able to have a spiritual relationship with the people who have gone. My mother and my father and my brother, my grandmother, I've been able to have a spiritual connection. And that's really what I want to impart, that when someone is gone from this form, from when we leave our body, it doesn't end. We can still have a relationship with that person if we choose to. When my father passed away in 1985, my father was a tough person because he was a cop, he was an Aries, and he was very fiery. And when he passed away, I remember thinking, he's not going to understand heaven and this journey to heaven. And I wanted to be with him and hold his hand on his journey up to heaven. I was taking on the mind of a little girl who's wanting to be with her daddy and comfort him as he's going up to God. And thankfully, my father stayed with me in spirit. He appeared in my dreams right away, and he has continued to appear in my dreams. And they're not just dreams. I can tell when they're just dreams, and I can tell when it's him appearing in my dream and when there's a message for me in that dream. And it's really been huge for me because he passed away when I was 21. So he left at a very crucial time. And when my mom passed, we knew that she was going to go because she had a heart condition. And so she was in a gradual decline over the years. And she was with me. She was in home hospice. And I remember a week before she passed, I said to her, you have to stay with me in spirit. And I know that you can because Dad has. And so if he can, then I know that you can. So I need you nearby in spirit. And she said, I'll do whatever I can, as best I can, I will be nearby. And indeed, I have felt her in so many ways. She has shown up. And it's been such a blessing. And I say to my other family members who have lost a parent, I let them know you can still engage with them, but it has to be your choice. And I think that the biggest gift my father gave to me was bringing it home that I could still have a relationship with him. They're there just like God, but we have to engage. And I feel like if we don't, it's kind of like True Blood. Probably a poor analogy, but remember True Blood and how the vampires had to be invited in. Otherwise, they just stood at the door. They had to stay at the door. And it's kind of the same thing. It's just a will to engage. And one of the ways that I have engaged, I'll tell you something, it's going to sound bizarre, but I could feel or sense my mom nearby, or just some unbelievable things might happen to show me that she's nearby. And then there's other times when she is just very much in my consciousness. She was the first experience I had right after she passed. I heard her in my consciousness just telling me to do different things. Then one time, I know this is a bit TMI, but one time I was having a mammogram and I was just thinking about my mom because she was so intolerant to pain. I mean, it was just crazy. Like she couldn't stand when the doctor would have to draw blood or anything. And when I went to get my mammogram, and I was, after she passed, and I am a little bit more busty than she was. And it was just so painful, in that pulling when you have to put your breast up on that plate. And it was the pulling. I was thinking about my mom, and I was just like, oh my God, she just would have I know that she just flipped when she had to go through this. And she just, zoop, I felt her in my consciousness, and I started laughing and talking with her. about this as it's going on. But of course, it's to myself because the technician would have thought I was cuckoo. I could tell you something really crazy that happened to me several years ago. Around 2007, I had come across this old journal from when I was a teenager. And in the journal, I was writing about my boyfriend at the time. And he has since died. He died of cancer when he was around 23. At the time that he died, we weren't in communication. He was in my hometown of Buffalo. I was here in Atlanta. And in the years before he was diagnosed, and we were together. I was 16. He was 2 years older than me. And, I was just sort of a naive brat. I was reading in the journal and just reflecting on how I was during that time, and it was just ridiculous from my perspective. And I wanted to apologize to him for how I was. I didn't know any better. And I asked God if he would let me talk to him and make a way for me to be able to talk to him and to communicate with him. And I just let it go. I asked God, I let it go, and I frankly forgot about it. Went on with my day. And about 3 days later, I'm on my lunch hour and I'm driving down the street, and all of a sudden, I feel my former boyfriend's presence inside me. I feel his spirit in my soul. He was there. And I was just like, what the what? And I started talking to him, and I started apologizing and saying, I was just a kid. I was just a child, really, at 16. And I'm really sorry that I didn't show up for you in a better way. And he just said, it's all okay. There's nothing to apologize for. All is well. We just kept talking along those lines for about 10 minutes. I had no idea how long it was going to last. And then he was gone. It was really phenomenal. And it was something that was so real. I'm only sharing this to say that we all can have this experience. There's nothing special with me. We can all have these experiences. All we have to do is ask God for these things. It's just a matter of being willing and asking. And life is not over. I believe life never ends. It's certainly not over when we leave this form. And I was talking about my brother one day, and a friend said to me, do you think you spend too much time focusing on the past? I don't think so, but it did get me to thinking and considering if that's true. He was holding me. We were standing face to face, and he was holding me, and he was being very loving. And my brother's name, who passed, his name is Jeffrey. And he said, Jeffrey's just fine. Jeffrey's fine. You don't have to worry about him. And he didn't say this, but I felt like he was saying, let it go, let him go. So I think about these things. I may not agree with what someone says, but I don't disregard it. I reflect on it and I say, is there any truth to that? And there may be a little bit of truth. I mean, I think that sometimes we can hold on to something too tightly and it doesn't benefit us. And then at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong with welcoming someone that we've lost to be around us and to enjoy that. A few days later, I had a dream, and my brother showed up in my dream, and the story of the dream gave me a message about myself right now. It gave me a message about relationships and my fears. I came to this new awareness about my present life as a result of my brother being in this dream. That to me is what it's all about. Everything is learning. And so no, I don't think I'm holding on to my brother too tightly. I miss him and I love him, and I miss my father, and I miss my grandmother, and I miss my mother. And, that love doesn't stop when we leave this form. And I think that some of us who miss our loved ones, I know I do. I feel a little bit sad when I sense that someone wants us to just get over it. And I'm not putting my friend on the spot. I mean, this has been going on for years. The other thing is, and this may be my own issues, but I want to bring this up. But the other thing is that I feel so strongly that we all matter. And the thought that when we leave this form, we don't matter anymore really hurts me a little bit. And I was thinking about my dad one time, and I was like, you know what? As time goes on, you have all these people at your funeral, and then as time goes on, people start forgetting about you or they pass away. Who really remembers you? It might come down to just a few core people. I mean, literally a few core people in your family that remembers you. And that's a reality. But we all matter. Each of us matters. We had a friend of the family that was my grandmother's boyfriend, and his name was Jesse. And when they broke up, Jesse remained a part of the family. He would come over for dinners and holidays, and this was in Virginia. When I was in town, I would go visit him. My mother would often stop by where he lived and just sit and chat with him. I would call him up on the phone. And my mother and grandmother were living in Virginia at the time. Then they moved to Atlanta. And my grandmother went to visit after she had moved to Atlanta and discovered that Jesse had died. And he had been in his apartment alone for about 5 days. He hadn't ever been married, and he didn't have any children. And it just hurt me. Oh, it hurt me so bad that he was there by himself because, we loved him so much. And it turned out that he had a niece, and I can't remember. I don't believe she lived in the city, Norfolk is where we were. I don't believe she lived in the Norfolk area, but it turned out that he had a niece, and that's who the police had contacted. And so I got in touch with the police, and I asked them for her information. They gave it to me, and I got in touch with her, and I just wanted her to know that he had people that loved him very, very much, and he was very much a part of our lives, and that he mattered. I just think that is so important. We matter. That was, my goodness, about 15 years ago, but he still matters. And there's a thought, and I do agree with it, that this world that we are in right now is not real. That it's an illusion, because there's a thought that anything that can change isn't real. The only thing that's real is that which is changeless. And I agree with that, but it doesn't mean that this world does not matter, that this world we are in does not matter. It does matter. And so I think about how when we leave this form, and even with Kobe, I think, wow, Kobe and Gigi and the other people who are on that plane, where they are right now in spirit, they're probably in, oh my God, such joy and love of their higher power. For me, I would call that God, but they're probably in just so much love and joy that we can't comprehend it. At the same time, we still matter here because we're grieving the loss of them. So that's our message for this episode. It's a departure from our regular episodes, but this has been an extraordinary week. Next week, we will return with a new guest. In the meantime, listen to all of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and our podcast YouTube channel. Also, remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. In the meantime, let's start healing.